Hi everybody, I'm back. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you are having a great time with family and friends or just lazing about the house or doing something active or whatever it is that you do on Thanksgiving. I hope you're doing it and that you get to eat some yummy food. Anyway, I'm here because we are reading one of my books and we're on chapter 10. The Monster in the Mountain. But first, an introduction to some of my other books in the series. And they're upside down. Hi. I have a very fun and engaging epic adventure series. And so, first book, start here. So if this is your first time seeing these videos, 2, super great 2, and then 3, which is where we first see the character that we're reading about right now. Okay, he's super awesome. You get to see him in this book as well. And then these are the 2 new ones that were just released. So if you have been following the book series, please go catch these 2. They go together. This is the 4th book. And this is a little thriller that goes with it. And believe me, you will know when to start reading the book of Leviticus, okay? You'll be like, oh my goodness, now I have to have that book. Okay, anyway, we're reading. I had to fight my cat for this chair, so we might have a limited time until she comes back. Chapter 10, The Monster in the Mountain. So, are you ready? Man, there's no lights on. Let me turn the lights on. It's like I'm alone in here or something. It's super dark. Okay, sorry. Got to turn the lights on. It's easier to read when there's lights on. Okay, chapter 10, The Monster in the Mountain. Thanks, babe. So nice to me. Okay. Beldagar rushed straight into the mine. For a few seconds, he closed his eyes and darkness flooded his sight. He opened them again, seeing clearly. He blinked rapidly, enjoying the new night vision. He headed straight to the back and the man-sized basket amid the striking sounds of the workers chipping away. The ground rumbled underneath his feet. Jumping the basket, he signaled the miner in charge of it to lower him. The basket slowly descended. His anticipation to hit the bottom level made his stomach turn. He was grateful that Thard was not on site today. He had no idea what to expect, only that he must prevent them from waking the dragon. If he didn't, he would have to stop the beast. The thought of going through the pain of transformation almost made him throw up. He had no idea how it worked, but it felt like a trigger in his mind, there beneath his skin like a natural part of him. The demon was only a thought away. The basket jerked to a halt at the bottom of the shaft. As he stepped out, he couldn't quite tell what was going on. The workers should have been laboring along the left side. Sorry, they tried to kick me off. A chill ran up his spine. Maybe I'm too late. Maybe the dragon already woke and ate them all. His fears quickly extinguished when voices came from the other end of the tunnel. His stomach lodged in his throat. The dark path down the right side loomed in his vision, and he shrank back at the thought of entering. They never worked that end of the tunnel. There was something wrong about it. He snuck toward the noises, even though urgency flooded him. The tunnel snaked around several times before spreading into a large cavern. Moisture dripped down the walls. A group of 10 men gathered at the other side of the area. Veins of gold streaked up the wall in an oval shape, heavy at the bottom and jagging up. Towering at least 10 men high, it gently curved out of the wall. A pile of boulders and rock sat heaped on the ground. The debris had fallen to reveal the dragon heart. One of the men raised his pick to sink it into the golden surface. No, Beldagar yelled. His voice echoed. Stopping the miner before the swing, all of the men spun. They squinted to see him, and Beldagar moved out of the shadows. He stretched out his hands, cautioning them, "Don't strike the surface." The men's dirty faces peered back. One stepped from the crowd. "It's high time you showed up." He pointed to the pile of rocks. "Start here." Beldagar worked his way around the rough ground. "We cannot disturb this wall." "What do you mean? It's gold." The man with the pickaxe pointed up to the wall. "No." Beldagar made it to the golden trove and touched the cold surface. His skin pulsed against the heart, growing warm. "This is not structurally sound. We cannot take down..." "Okay. Sorry. It paused me." We're back. What did I just say? Right. "This is not structurally sound. We cannot take this wall like this. Take down this wall like this." He lied to divert their attentions away, but the gold shone in their fixed gazes. The men almost drooled at it, as though in a feverish trance. "There's no such thing," the man with the axe argued. Beldagar pled to their sanity. "Why do you think we don't work this wing of the mine? We're not to be in here." "I don't care." The miner swung the pickaxe at his head, and Beldagar barely ducked enough to miss. "Okay, what is going on with the internet here?" "Sorry." Okay, I read that. "We're not to be in here." "I don't care." The miner swung the pickaxe at his head, and Beldagar barely ducked enough to miss. He blinked, completely stunned, but gold fever glimmered in the man's eyes. The miner rebounded and struck him across the face. The sharp pain spread against his cheek as he tumbled to the ground. His eyes ignited. We're going to get through this chapter, with or without the internet. I know, it keeps flickering on and off. My son's like, "What's going on? Mom's acting weird." Sorry. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. The sharps. Okay. The miner rebounded and struck him across the face. The sharp pain spread against his cheeks as he tumbled to the ground. His eyes ignited, glowing an emerald green. The low gleam was visible in a small puddle beneath him. Suddenly it clicked. It was the eyes. When he looked at Foresees, he recognized his own eyes. Everything bothering him flashed clearly into view. The man on the wagon, on the way to find the family, his eyes had a glint of green. The woman carrying the bushel in her long, slender arms and smooth hands. It was the same apparition in her eyes. It was her. All the miners solidly stepped back. "He's a monster! Kill him!" one man yelled. Instant war broke out. 10 men rushed him. Beldagar pushed back the first oncomers, casting them into the air. His strength surprised even him. Attacking fists pounded against his face. He thrashed, knocking away the waves of men, scattering them around the cavern. Their cries echoed in his ears as they flailed away. The boils surfaced on his skin, sending shooting pains. He caught sight of a pickaxe directed straight for his head. With one clawed hand, he caught the wooden handle. Terror spread across the man's face as Beldagar kicked him back, launching him against the furthest wall. Rocks pelted him from behind. He spun to the other attackers and sheltered his face, grimacing. The pain of his transformation seethed through him. His legs cracked beneath him, and his growled cries vibrated off the walls. Men fled. Out of the chaos, another pickaxe cut through the air. Searing pain shot through his head as he jerked out of the blade's path. It lodged undeniably into the dragon egg behind him. The deep pounding of a heart resonated through the cavern. The mobbing men froze as the large egg on the wall illuminated, glowing red. The gold-veined webbing melted out of the cracks. Beldagar stumbled away, rushing towards the exit as lava flowed beneath the faults. He could see the illuminated features of the balled-up creature within. A wicked eye flickered open, and the wall burst, pouring liquid heat into the cavern. The men fled, but were quickly consumed. Beldagar ran wildly into the tunnel toward the basket. His claws were completely transformed as he batted the basket from the shaft and jumped up the hole. Grasping the walls with his claws, he pulled his feet up just as the lava surged beneath and continued down the tunnel like a hot river. Raw heat filtered up. Sorry, the cat's back, trying to get his seat back. Raw heat filtered up the shaft. He clawed and scrambled up. Faces peered down the hole. "Run!" he screamed. Each head disappeared. He heard their pounding footsteps and yelled as they raced toward the exit. Suddenly, his back ribs cracked open. His scream distorted into growling cries that pierced the air. A roar answered from beneath. Chunks of wall caved in as he crawled up. As he shot one hand out of the shaft to grip the floor, his wings sprouted fully, ripping his back in half. His skin burned and hardened with the red, glowing cracks. He didn't even feel the heat of the dragon anymore. The searing pain shot through his head as his horns grew. The ground behind him shook and splintered.
This is painful.
Okay, you're not allowed to talk during the story. Sorry. The ground behind him shook and splintered, falling into the depths of the molten rock. A massive steaming claw broke through the ground, sinking into the rock surface. Its arm had thick shingled armor that glowed with heat. Beldagar spun clumsily and ran for the exit as his body continued contorting. He glanced back. The mine roof slowly crumbled. Then he saw it, the dragon. The monster moved upward, glowing red from its lava birth, shielding its features. Its long torso continued up as lava reached the main tunnel, seeping to the exit. Beldagar burst out of the mountain, halting at the petrified faces of the escaped miners. His wings spread out as his horns curled backward behind his head. It was only a couple of seconds until the lava flowed like a river out of the mine. He skipped a step to move, sending the men running and screaming toward town. He turned back, facing the mine. The thick heat split around him. Reaching down, he touched the steaming liquid. The red cracks in his skin ignited. Strength surged through him as the heat extended up his arm. The side of the mountain above his head erupted. Rocks poured down, and fire burst through the gaping hole. An elongated head emerged. Inch by inch, the dragon crawled out, its plated armor still glowing red from its molten rebirth. Beldagar flapped his wings, taking flight. The dragon scanned around and then focused solely on him. Its head was crowned with spikes that continued in columns around its back. A long tail whipped out, crashing into the mountainside. Ceremoniously, its wings spread in the air. They were larger than his. The creature reared on its back legs and roared into the sky, releasing a long streak of fiery breath. Fire that had no effect on him. As the dragon snapped its sharp jaws and dug its claws into the mountainside, Beldagar felt a predestined cringe. He flew higher, hoping the dragon would move along rather than engage in a fight. A trail led up the mountain with a line of people halfway up. It climbed the rocky surface. The people stirred with alarm at the rumbling sounds. Beldagar dove. The beast instinctively whipped its head around, and its claws widened. Thick talons sunk into Beldagar's shoulders, grabbing him. They collided into the rocky mountainside. The dragon snapped at his face, but he held the monster at bay until it kicked its bottom legs. The force launched Beldagar back into the air. He barely oriented himself without toppling to the ground. The dragon crawled to the other side within seconds. Beldagar shot into the sky, pursuing. The sudden sight of the festival party made his worry grow. They were quickly progressing up the mountain, with the dragon closing in on them. Then Beldagar spotted her. Rose, standing out of the crowd, caught her first glimpse of his transformed figure. Her eyes widened. His body went rigid, making it hard to breathe. He dove and grabbed the dragon by the tail. The party scattered up the mountain like sheep. The dragon whipped around, swinging its tail out of his grip. The motion knocked a few people down the cliff. Beldagar's heart wrenched, helpless to rescue them. The instant threat to Rose propelled him into action. With a jump, he landed on the dragon's back, rolling him further down the trail. The dragon sunk its teeth deep into his shoulder. Beldagar roared in pain and heard cracking sounds from his torso. With a leveraging push against the rock, he launched the dragon off and over his shoulder. It rolled only a few times and jumped, spreading its wings. Then it caught the air, soaring down toward the trees. It let up just above the village, and its interest peaked when new screams sounded. Beldagar rushed up the mountain to where the group had been. The path was empty. He scurried up around the bend. Fleeing figures disappeared around the next winding bend. Rose was being dragged along by none other than Thard, who held a jagged knife to her back. An angry roar echoed across the mountain, blowing straight through them. Beldagar barely felt the vibrations in his throat. An animalistic drive snapped in his brain. He plowed straight for them, knocking down huge boulders. Thard's eyes widened, and he yanked harder on Rose's arms. Beldagar skipped straight to the top, to the great hidden secrets of the mountain. Old men and young scanned the commotion. All of their heads were shaven, and they were dressed in long white robes. White pillars circled a round marble platform with chains and ropes fastened to them. Behind, an altar with a dead sheep on it. A man stood with another jagged knife. Thard and Rose rushed through the stone archway to the top. They stopped shy of the ceremonial surface. Thard grabbed Rose by the hair, forcing her down, and lifted his knife. Beldagar dove straight at him. People fled as he crashed on top of Thard, his claw clenched around the arm holding the knife, and squeezed. Thard's deep cry forced out as his bones splintered. He dropped the blade and grimaced in agony. They both looked to Rose. She sat back, panting in fear. Beldagar's mind whirled. Does she know it's me saving her? Her lip was bleeding. For a second he was frozen, afraid of hurting her, afraid of what he was doing was hurting her. In a flash, she bolted from the ground, grabbed the knife, and lodged it into Thard's chest. Beldagar immediately let go. Thard grabbed the protruding hilt, glaring straight into Rose's eyes. Her panted breathing rushed out and tears streaked down her face. Thard slowly dropped between them. Her whole body shook as she stood there like a scared statue. Rose swallowed. Beldagar, her voice was hoarse. Beldagar knelt and lowered his head to the ground, his wings folded around her. He jolted as her hands touched his head, gliding over one of his horns. His entire body relaxed, and his words were able to slip out. I'm sorry. A sound rushed from behind. He straightened, and Rose staggered back toward the stone archway. Hide, he growled. As Beldagar turned, a swarm of priests charged him with long poles. His eyes went fuzzy, and all he could hear were the priests' shrieking cries and the cracking of their weapons echoing in his ears. A faint green flickered around him. His body was moving without his consciousness. When his senses took back control, he witnessed blood and crumbled bodies. Panic rushed him. Would he lose the ability to control his own mind? He had murdered them. He panted as the wind blew, chilling his heart. The main priest glowered behind the altar, still, his eyes full of rage. The rest of the offering party fled down the mountain. "You have tainted this holy place, you unworthy demon," the old priest pointed his knife. "The gods of the mountain will deliver justice upon you." Beldagar started forward. The priest stumbled from the altar and around the rock wall. Heat built inside Beldagar with every step, their grand marble home and golden statues. It was all as he thought it would be. He trailed the priest through a courtyard and back behind the structures until a great pit stopped him from going any further. Uneasiness crept up. The priest bellowed, "I am the holy servant of the gods. You may not lay your hands upon me." Within the pit, impaling spikes jutted from the rocky surface. It slanted down into a crack in the mountainside. A piece of mountain worked as a shielding barrier from the wind on the other side of the gap. Bones and skulls adorned the pit with leafy crowns and shredded, blood-soaked togas. When he imagined Rose there lifeless, something cracked inside him. He grabbed the priest, sinking his claws into his belly. The priest shrieked and grasped his torso, shaking. Beldagar flew above the deep crack, filled with the bones of the worthy, beautiful sacrifices. "I do the gods' will," the priest bawled as they pushed higher into the sky. "I am a servant." Beldagar held him up to view his suffering face. His pleas were endless, but they did not hide the green glimmer. The priest shook violently, revealing the disgusting monster within. His face contorted. Beldagar loosened his grip, and the priest slipped from his grasp. His eyes echoed through his ears, ending with a crunch in the sacrificial pit. Beldagar didn't feel a thing, no regret or guilt. His mind flashed back to the man he had almost killed earlier that day, and the great difference. He moved slowly back to the top of the mountain, judging the place that sustained their evil practices. He barreled through the marbled structures. The walls and pillars broke in his hands and from the force of his body. Everything crashed to the next ground. He picked up a pillar and batted the golden statues down. Next, he ripped the altar up and hurled it down the mountainside. As he spun around to destroy the other pillars, he stopped dead in his tracks. Rose stood on the edge of the platform, staring at him. He heaved out his breaths, trying to calm down, and then sunk. Her hand clasped over her mouth, and tears streaked down her face. "What have we done?" she asked softly. He didn't understand. He pulled on his horns in grief as a pained look swept across her face. She grabbed her head in great pain. He recognized it well, the sharp headaches and flood of memories weaving around each other. She was remembering their past lives and their entwined curse. He could only hope that now she could be free. Foresees' voice vibrated in his mind. "Beldagar." Screams echoed up the mountain, along with the deep roar of the dragon. They both looked to the sound. Beldagar swept Rose into his arms and cradled her safely against his chest. Her simple touch made all the confusion and pain inside cease. He took to the air and circled down to the destructive movement of the dragon upon the village. People fled from all directions, while the trees burned, flaking into ash. Beldagar flew a good distance away and set Rose in a meadow. He launched back into the air, ignoring her protests. He had an important errand to attend to, and he didn't want her to witness it. He homed onto the center of the village and dove straight for the dragon. To the very last second, he did not let up and knocked them both deep into the ground. The earth crumbled in his wake. Angry cries vibrated the air as the dragon sunk its claws into him. Beldagar braced against the attack. They rolled, snapping and clawing at each other. The dragon managed to escape his grip. It reared, blowing fire directly at his chest. He absorbed the heat, and new strength spread through his body. The dragon growled. It jumped and latched onto his shoulder. Beldagar rolled backward, taking the dragon with him. In a quick glimpse, he saw the nag crushed beneath them as they rolled. "Stop it, cat. Stop it." They cracked the forest to the ground and lay in the heaped earth. The dragon stood and shook its head, retreating. Beldagar reached out to grab it. As he did, a green glow captured his hand. "No, Beldagar, let him live. Creatures like these are hard to come by and can be very useful," Foresees' voice echoed through his mind. "It's time." He helplessly watched as the dragon escaped, taking a deep, succumbing breath. He stopped trying to overcome her power. "Let me say goodbye," he pled, looking through the forest to where he had left Rose. The green magic disappeared. As he jumped into the air, the aftermath of his encounter with the dragon throbbed through his body. His thoughts turned to Rose. So that was probably one of the most intense chapters of the book. I really liked that one. Anyway, sorry for the cat. She was mad that I took her chair. I kicked her out of the chair before I started reading. But our next chapter is chapter 11, The Last Deal. So, that is the last chapter, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's the last chapter, and we will read it tomorrow. I hope you guys have been enjoying this reading. It's me stepping out of my comfort zone, but in the end, I really do love my books, and I love my ability to be able to tell stories and to have my son be like, "Ooh, that was painful." Right, Bryson?
Yeah, that sounds painful.
Where's that cat?
Oh,
We should show it to the audience so that they know that I'm not making up lies about...
okay.
No, I think she's going outside to get it.
No, there she is.
Grab it! Grab the cat!
No, I have to grab it. Or
Hurry before she gets away.
No.
Yeah. All right, bring it over here. Whoa, don't drop it. Yeah, this one right here. Say hi.
She hates being picked up.
She does hate being picked up. And she's still angry with me about kicking her out of the chair. There you go, kitty. All right. I really do hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I am surrounded by many blessings. This is one of them. Okay? We will see you guys tomorrow. Do you want to come in here and be one of my blessings? No, thank you. Okay. Bye, guys.